Before we start today's roundtable, I want to give special thanks to Checkster, our group sponsor. Checkster has become well known in the recruiting industry by providing a platform that easily captures reference checks in the hiring process. I myself have been a customer of theirs for years. I use a reference checking tool for all of my new hires. However, Checkster has now released a new product suite called Insights. This new product suite is really what has excited me to have Checkster as the group sponsor. With Insights, the Checkster platform now covers employees from cradle to grave and not just reference checking, starting when they apply, going to offer, through onboarding, then covering their work at your company, and then to the end with exit interviews. It's an easy to use, easy to understand way of giving and getting feedback from your peers. Checkster's simple goal, to build more productive and passionate teams. Now, if this concept of getting insights from your peers regarding your work sounds familiar, it should, because that's the simple goal of this group. Connecting, communicating, collaborating. Support me, support the group. Follow the link below, recruiting.org/Checkster. This will take you to a landing page to sign up for a quick demo. If you are just thinking about automating your reference checking process, it'll be well worth your time. But I encourage you to check out the full Insights suite. I'd love to find out if you feel the way I feel about it. Now let's get to today's roundtable. All right, good morning, audience. Thank you everybody for attending episode 72 in Let's Talk Recruiting. Today we have our second edition of Tool Time with Marvin Smith and Eric Jaquith, and I'm going to be turning it over to them here in a quick second and let them roll with their topic. So with that said, let's jump into it. I'm going to stop sharing, and then Marvin and Eric, I'll turn it over to you guys to take it away.
Excellent. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. How's everybody doing? I'm going to share my desktop to begin. So Eric and I were talking about one of the more basic things that we go through, and we thought it would be interesting to have some planned spontaneity to talk through a little bit about how we organize ourselves. You know, I remember one of the first lessons that I learned in Sunday school was about two builders, one builder that built their house on a rock and one builder that built their house on sand. And so when the climate change occurred, the person that built their house on sand, it fell. And the one that built it on a rock survived. And in a way, that's kind of a metaphor for what I think about in recruiting. I've been in recruiting for 49 years, if you can believe that. And one of the things that has always worked well for me was to build out or think about a model. And if you've heard any of my presentations or webinars before, you know, I usually start with some sort of a framework to give us sort of an agenda for a conversation. So when I think about recruiting, I think about the first step is really where we begin by exploring where are we going to find the talent. The next step that I go through is who are these people? Who are the people that we want to put into our pipelines? And then I build on the first two examples and think about, okay, how do we engage these people? So I've done some research into the Explore tab. I've discovered who they are, specifically developed profile information. Now I'm going to craft messages that's going to connect with them. The next step is an evaluation process that takes place. You know, you really try to get into what makes the target talent tick and how to move forward from there. And then finally, in my process, because I'm in talent sourcing, the people that they evaluate and they want to go forward in an interview, I forward on to recruiting. The people that don't, then we want to put them in a nurture path, because once you identify them, it's going to be easier to keep them engaged in an orbit around your brand than otherwise. So that's really the framework that I work from. And I explain that so that I can move to a little bit more about how that works in a day-to-day environment. So one of the things that we were going to talk about today is how we use Chrome as a way to target or way to organize ourselves. So if you look at my Chrome toolbar, it kind of mirrors what's going on in the format that I showed you, the framework. So I start with the Explore tab, and I have some different
Marvin, we're not
tools and
seeing
those
your
kind of
toolbar.
things.
We're still seeing your slide deck.
Okay, there you go. It's let's try this. Let me close that so people don't call in while I'm here. Can you see it now?
Still seeing PowerPoint as your main slide. Not your slides, just your one slide in PowerPoint there. You're showing your PowerPoint app right now only.
Let's try this.
Yes, now we're seeing LinkedIn Recruiter.
All right, to back up quickly. So what I try to do is mirror what I do in terms of my organization on a day-to-day basis. So if these are the different tools that I might use, the hiring team, the hiring managers, different kinds of tools that are useful to me. And this, we have Avature, so I'm, have that bookmark. We use brass rings, so I have that bookmark. The idea being it's going to save me a lot of time. And, I even bookmark my colleague Dean DaCosta's 4,000 different Chrome extensions that are available for us. So, and then when I get to the engage in messaging, I have different tools that allow me to find icons. I have different blogs that I follow. The messages, just here are some ideas around subject lines from different experts, that sort of thing. And then the conversion and so forth. So you get the idea that I'm trying to organize myself in terms of not having to remember what the process is. If you go to a doctor and you, before you get in to see the doctor, they've taken your vital signs. They've gone through a checklist, if you will, of things that are going on, from blood pressure to weight to heart rate to all these different things that they're taking care of. So in a way, that's kind of what we're doing, looking at the vital signs. And then I go over to, I'm a photographer, so I have all these different photography things that kind of blend into my personal life. But if you look at Eric, and we're going to transition to him right now, he organizes his whole life with his Chrome bar. So I was kind of excited for him to share that. So, Eric?
Okay, let me switch screens first. We're going to do this a couple different times. Marvin, go ahead and stop sharing yours, and then I can start sharing mine. There you go. Thank you. And the idea of this was simply, I admit, we organize things in different ways, and my Chrome extension, doesn't have bookmarks with inside bookmarks if I find it easy. Oops, don't send. Should be able to see my screen still.
Yeah, we can still see your screen, Eric.
Okay, excellent. I'm getting a weird error message popping up there a couple times. So whatever bookmarks you want to put on, organize them how you choose. I think a lot of people don't sometimes even use the toolbar up here, which just Shift-Control-B. Shift-Control-B turns that on and turns that off. So if you're not seeing this toolbar in Chrome or in any other browser, Shift-Control-B turns it off. Shift-Control-B turns it back on. Make sure you have it on here. Okay. And adding things to your bookmark. Yes,
Eric, I'm seeing Zoom quit unexpectedly. Can you X that out?
Yep.
There. You may have to
stop sharing my screen. Share. You don't think you can share anything there?
Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no. If you're not seeing what I think you're seeing, then we have a problem.
Yeah, Eric, do you see the Zoom quit unexpectedly window? It's still there. Oh, you may have.
Sean, can you hear me okay?
Yep. Yeah, I still got you. Everything's good except for when you share your screen, you get that Zoom quit. There we go. So we see your screen.
Okay, good. All right. don't know what was hiccup there, but now you can see my screen and you can hear me. So let's move on. What I wanted to show is this. In your Chrome browser extension, or if you're in another browser, you normally have a persona or a person. So if I click on this icon up here, this logo, okay, it brings up, and normally you can have this logo being, you can say, I want to bring up my personas or my different people. I think in Bing they call, in Edge, Microsoft Edge, they calls this, your profile. But these profiles or these different personas are like a separate Chrome browser completely. So if I bring up my Project One browser, it loads a second browser right on top or right next to, however you want to do it, the other browser. And this browser can have totally different bookmarks. It can have totally different Chrome extensions than the previous one. Okay, so each of my life areas, my projects, if I'm recruiting for sales people and I'm recruiting for a sales team, I may have these in different areas. And this lets me have different categories of bookmarks in different categories. When I'm doing training, for example, I'll just simply hit add, and I'll come in here and put a new training persona. So I'll say training. Pick a logo if I want to. I'll pick a different logo. And then just say add. Notice you can put a desktop icon if you want to. And now this is a brand new browser. It has no memory, no cache, doesn't remember anything. I can hit Shift Control B, turn on my bookmarks. And now it's a brand new environment to play with. So if you're testing Chrome extensions, or if you have a new guy who's starting, you might want to transfer some of your bookmarks over to the new guy. You can just drag them over, drop them over here. And now the new guy has access to those different bookmarks that you just created. You literally can just copy them over. And now if you want to export those, you can easily go into your bookmarks, go to your bookmark manager, and just export those bookmarks over to your buddy. And just that one set of bookmarks goes over. Same thing if you want to import bookmarks from someone else. So having these different personas or different profiles to organize your life makes it a lot easier. You can close them out, get rid of them, and you're back to whatever profile you opened last, which is use my normal work profile. So that's just up here next to these three dots. Just click on it once. And if you don't, you should see guest and add at the bottom. Add a couple other areas to keep organized. Like I said, departments, life versus work. Since we're all doing this virtual working thing, sometimes changing PCs is kind of crazy. I know a lot of recruiters who have to use a corporate PC and don't want to put anything personal. I completely relate to that. But in that case, you might want to have one department, if you're supporting engineers and sales and finance, different browsers for different bookmarks and different Chrome extensions for each of those. Or if you're doing management work versus production work versus training work, you can keep those personas differently. I know a lot of my friends use one just for testing Chrome extensions. So they have one for testing things, and then they have their life environment. So I highly recommend that. Let's go on to the next topic, which I like, which is bookmark management. If we're you got to kind of stay organized with your bookmarks as well, but you got to say password management is next. I use LastPass as a way to keep track of all my bookmarks. A lot of people just use the native bookmark manager inside Chrome, which is fine. But if you use different PCs or use different browsers, then that may not be ideal for you. I will switch oftentimes to other browsers, and I like the fact that LastPass works on my mobile phone, via Android or iPhone, on my on my Edge browser or my Chrome browser or my Firefox browser. So, Marvin, do you use a password manager?
Not yet, but like many things that I'm learning from you, I need to. So I try to remember, and that's harder.
Yeah. I just can't do it. So I can organize them once again, same as I do. I can organize all my credit cards, all my passwords for work and business and fun, as well as just my logins for my Wi-Fi and some of the Wi-Fi logins that I use when I travel different coffee shops in different places. So I keep them all in there. The reason I also like it, it has the ability to suggest really long, complicated 15, 20 character passwords with uppers and lowers and numbers and symbols. And I don't try to remember all that. I just like to have really hardened passwords. I like to be able to change my passwords regularly. So if you haven't tried LastPass, I'm not sponsored by them. I don't pay for their fee. I use their free version. There's reasons to pay for it if you need a hardened more passwords, but it worked well for me and it has for years. And it's just a little bit stronger than the normal password function that you have built into your settings in Chrome. I just find it a little bit easier. Let's talk about the other type of data that we're always organizing. If I would say meeting notes. Marvin, tell me a little bit about how you organize the rest of the stuff in your world around meetings.
I do well. I organize. I use Outlook. It's I spent some time at Microsoft, so I guess I'm a little bit indoctrinated into that way of doing things. So I use Outlook to manage my calendar and manage the appointments. We happen to have an automation tool here at Lockheed that allows people to see my calendar and so forth, but that's something extra. And then I use OneNote an awful lot. I know there's big fans out there of people that are using Evernote and I have debate with my friends over what's best, but for me, OneNote's really been kind of the catch-all for everything.
Can you share your screen and show a little bit about OneNote?
Sure, happy to.
I've used OneNote a few times just to organize meeting notes. I tried it when I was taking some classes. It was okay for that as well. And I just haven't stayed current with the improvements that it's made. Wow, look at all the tabs. That's marvelous.
Oh yeah, it's I don't know. It turns into a monster. So I use it for a lot of different things. So for example, when I was working an active desk for systems engineers, I actually recorded each of the interviews that happened. And so I would record my interview notes and keep them. And of course, it's all searchable. Today, I was trying to find some information. I'm starting a new gig on Monday within Lockheed. And so it's going to take me back to some systems engineering kinds of things. And so this goes back to 2018, and we have a subject matter expert here at Lockheed was president of the Professional Association for Systems Engineers. And so, I connected with him there. So when I use it just about for everything. And so as I'm preparing for this new gig, I've gone through and looked at the competitors. I don't know how many of you build out battle cards for competitors, but I like to get an idea of how we compete with the different organizations. And in this case, a lot of these companies I'm not familiar with. So I'll go to SeekOut or I'll go to LinkedIn Insights and a couple of tools that I have and learn, a little bit more about them, learn how they relate to the target audiences. So I'm looking for 3 profiles. I'm looking for systems engineers, software engineers, and mechanical engineers. And so I just build out that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can see why recruiters would like this. Are you able to store this online? Or is it just on your PC? Is it stored in the cloud? Is it collaborative? Tell me a little bit more about how it worked with other people if you needed to share a chapter or an element of it.
So you can share the pages real easy. I say real easy. I don't do it a lot, but you can, just like in anything, you can put it in, we can put it in Box, or we can put it in we use a primarily Box. Everything at Lockheed is pretty much locked down. So all the beautiful things that you folks all have in terms of Google and so forth, we don't have any access to. So it's a matter of going to Box and then sharing that out with my colleagues. So I can share a sheet specifically, and then from sharing that, so I can move it, make it a subfolder, rename, do a lot of different things, copy link, and then put that link in box and people can
Yeah,
have
perfect.
access to the same information. So
Yeah, I can imagine this as a knowledge transfer tool would be tremendous. If you have a tab or a section for each department or each hiring authority, for example, likes and preferences or type of
right.
profile you're recruiting for, I can see it being tremendously valuable to be able to keep all this in a place that you can pass it on to the next member of your team or collaborate with team members as the team grows. I've never really used OneNote to do it that way. And partly because I'm so old that OneNote didn't exist when I started working with Microsoft and using these tools. So I just, I used the poor man's way. At the first, we had email. So I used to just take notes and email myself originally.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I realized that the task function in Microsoft Office did a lot of the same functions. I could just basically create a task for myself, which I thought, a meeting was a task or an appointment was a task, and a search was a task that I was running. So I would just build a task card or a task element, just like you create a new email message. I would create a new task and I would type in all the details of that job order I was working, any search strings I was running, anything I would do. Each task became my index card, if you will, for managing that project. And then I could actually email those tasks to people, or I could assign a task to someone, or I could share my previous task with someone by just, clicking on it and forwarding that task to someone if they were then going to open that job and recruit for that job later after I left. So I found that tasks inside Outlook was a very simple way when you didn't have SharePoint and you didn't have anything else. So I started with just an email to myself and then gravitated to tasks, because tasks I could actually delegate and I could have time frames on a task. Can you do anything like that here? Is there any kind of time frames or anything that indicates like you need to finish something in the note by a certain time?
No, I haven't used it that way. What I tend to do is kind of, I don't know about you, but I'm an eclectic collector of data. Yeah. And if I see an idea or something like that, here's an example. So subject lines, or I work a lot in talent engagement. So if I see a subject line that's interesting to me, I'll just snip it and drop it in. So this is, I don't know, several hundred probably at this point of subject lines that I've run across that sort of are intriguing, because I'm trying to win the battle for the inbox at times, and as we all know, that's a big challenge. So it's more of a data collection place to me than it is task.
All the links are live, so it's nice. So when you click on something, it actually will go to those places, just like it will in tasks or an email message you send. So it's very easy to travel.
Yeah, this will take us right to, should be to Erin Matthew right away, and we'll theoretically see her. Yeah, so you get to keep things alive. I kind of like that part of it. So
that's nice. That's real nice.
Yeah. So can you show how you use tasks? I
can show just a quick
real quick, Eric. Can I share? Hey, one last question, Marvin, on OneNote. Does it sync with Teams, or do you utilize it with Teams at all?
We don't use Teams. I can't answer that. It might. It sure can sync with.
Amy Westbrook says yes to everything. Yes. So yes, I think it does. And I've done it as well. So you can make it very collaborative. And it also works really well with Microsoft Stream. So you can put video content that streams off, basically like your own private YouTube channel if you're using Microsoft Stream as part of the enterprise license as well.
Thank you.
Cool. So let me stop sharing and let you share.
See if it doesn't glitch this time. Let's see here. I'm just going to share let's just turn my screen. So in here, typically my email, and then I will make my icon here to go to my tasks. Usually your mail down here. So your little clipboard. If I just go to my tasks, I can have my tasks like this. And just like you can set up your email, you can set up a new task. It just opens a brand new task like you would an email. And then you can put in, whatever it is you're searching for. And then you just have a block like you would an email. Think of this as an email to yourself. But you can put start dates and end dates and priorities. And you can delegate it, which is really nice. When you need to assign a task to someone, you can actually send this card to someone, and then you get information back that they're working on it when they update it, those kinds of things. So if you have cards built or messages that you've built, you can think of them as just a preview over here. You can go to your view, just like you would before, and you can say preview messages, or set up your reader pane so you can read it to the right. So I just set this exactly up like I have my email. So I can look at notes I've taken on things, hyperlinks that I've made, upper lowercase, spell check, all the things that you do in an email, but now it's in your own little stash of things you need to do and have. What I like about it is just I can use macros if I want to add, simple macros to add ors. I can use spell checker. I can use Control G to replace things. If I'm building strings, the links are all live. I can use my highlighter function. So when I'm building a search, I might, for example, start with a big description like that. I'll paste it twice. This is the unedited version of it, and then I'll come in here and I'll start highlighting things that are important. And I'll start blocking out things that are not important, and I'm left with the essence of what I'm looking for that I can then build a string upon, and then build something like this. So it's just a way I organize to be able to have the tools of Microsoft that work. One of the things that you have to watch out for, though, is the damn quotes. I'll say it that way. They call them smart quotes, but the curly quotes will mess up your Boolean strings in a major way. So just go in there and in your settings, and I'm not going to do it in this process, but just shut off smart quotes. So if you start seeing quotes that are curly, in other words, the front ones that look different than the back ones, then you have smart quotes on. Smart quotes will not work. If I triple click to grab this and stick it into some search engine, it will sometimes blow up because smart quotes are there. So just go into your settings and disable smart search. It's just an on-off switch. If you need instructions, I actually have instructions that I've sent to many of my recruiters. And I can just 3-point, 4-point instructions to shut those off. And so smart quotes won't mess you up. But that's how I do it. And same thing, if you're used to searching your inbox for things, well, then it's very, very easy to come on here and say, I want to search my to-dos or my tasks in the past, or my delegated tasks, and I can find things just like I would in my inbox very, very quickly. Since most of us are collaborative in our inbox and our inbox are being backed up and archived by our enterprise, you don't need a special tool. I worked with companies that didn't have OneNote. That was early on when OneNote was an additional cost. I think OneNote comes with everything now, Marvin. So I think it's easier. But if you want to share tasks amongst a group, almost like you would share a calendar amongst a group. I knew organizations that took all their search strings and built a search string library and tasks, and then shared that entire task folder so everybody could benefit from the strings that were built by other recruiters, which is kind of a cool way of doing it.
Absolutely.
So common notes, common knowledge, notes after a meeting. Think of it as a way of organizing. So OneNote works great. Evernote works great. Tasks is another way of doing it if you're sharing with people all over the country, over the world. If you're in a big organization across multiple regions and don't have access to a cloud-based collaborative way of doing it, it kind of is a way to do it. Let's move on to the searches or candidate related. Obviously, tasks in OneNote can be related to that. I know you have Avature at Lockheed, and you've used many applicant tracking systems over the years. How do you keep track of where you are in the process with candidate data, recs you're working on, that kind of stuff? Is it all in OneNote, or do you have a different method to do that?
Well, in terms of the CRM, that's where I manage the metrics and the key performance indicators of what's going on with a particular initiative. So I try to run iterative or drip marketing kinds of campaigns, and we've learned how to automate that. So that takes some of the pressure off, and so that we're looking at the follow-up dates, and then in nurturing, we're setting up kind of an automated nurturing path. And so it's really about the content and that sort of thing. But before we get to that part, I keep track of, how do we find the people, what kind of search strings work best, kind of keep a library of them. I basically have some starter search strings, you know, with the keywords and that sort of thing. So, and I keep those in OneNote. So by looking at the commentary, a lot of people may be further ahead than I am on some of the things to do with OneNote, and there's some other products out there that are pretty interesting as well. So I guess if it's not broke, I'm not trying to fix it, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, I think a lot of the recruiters I know have been looking for ways to organize strings amongst a team, build a string library or build some kind of knowledge base. And if your applicant tracking system gives you the ability to keep track of this stuff in the applicant tracking system or CRM, I think that's the right place to put all that. If you have a field to keep strings in the job order itself, or if you have note section or commentary that you can kind of keep track of lessons learned. So someone going back in later on, looking at the past candidates for a job, can look at the past search strings and benefit from it as well. Some have actually, knowledge bases within it or more way to communicate within the applicant tracking system. That works as well. I did a lot of contracts for many years, and I worked with dozens of applicant tracking systems. And no matter what applicant tracking system I was in, I found it was a little easier. And the most common things recruiters are doing was building their own spreadsheets.
Right.
Before Google Sheets, we were doing it in Excel. Same thing can be done in Google Sheets. It's just whatever your preference is. And then people could share them amongst the team. I found out real early that I could build a 10-column spreadsheet for my jobs and another 10-column spreadsheet for my, or less for my hiring managers, and another 10-column spreadsheet for my candidates. And I could keep track of the vital data real easily of which jobs, which candidates were matched on. I could just match up candidates to jobs, and I wouldn't have to retype all this stuff in. And then I could do any kind of pivots or reports really easy off where candidates were. And I could do it, once again, in Excel. I could do it with Google Sheets. And it wasn't that complicated. I found it was really handy to be able to keep track of, the date I sourced them, who responded, certain milestones, that they withdrew, reject, when they were submitted, when they were interviewed. I just kept track of dates of who was live and who wasn't. Because I didn't have that many people I was interviewing per day. I didn't have that many people I was finding per day. In most cases, I was finding less than 20 people per day, less than 100 per week. So it wasn't a tremendous amount of data crunching. I wished I could do it in the applicant tracking system as soon as this. In better applicant tracking systems, the CRM tools made it a little bit easier. But if you're out there and you're struggling with getting organized, I would really recommend you just look at, basic data sheets, a list. Think of it as a list management system. You have a list for managers you're supporting, a list for jobs you're organizing. I don't care if it's in OneNote or Excel. You can do the same type of list inside Word if you prefer. But eventually, when you start taking your lists and you start combining them or merging them together, that's what I call my match report. My match list takes the candidate's information off the candidate list based on the phone number and the job order information based on the job order number, and then brings them together so I can do nice reporting. For those of you who are not Excel experts, that's not as complicated as you think. It's simply an X copy or an X lookup command. So if you don't know how to do an X lookup command, that's an example of one. It's really not complicated. An X lookup just says, I know the information I need for this column is on this other table of this other sheet over here called clients or candidates or jobs. So please bring the data from that column over to this column over here without me doing it. And the instructions are really straightforward. If you've ever done one, it has 4 parts. It's very, very easy to do. So my recommendation is really look at learning some top 5 or 6 functions on Google Sheets or Excel. An X lookup is an excellent place to start, so you're not having to retype crap over and over and over again. And you can make a very simple spreadsheet. And then from doing spreadsheets like this, then it's very easy to do calculations and get counts and find out how many people you did have in the first quarter or in the first week of the quarter, and manage how many people you're actually working on at any given time per day. So this kind of roll up thing, once again, this is not a complex report. Anybody in your organization in accounting or many of your recruiting managers will have basic pivot table functionality. This is called as a pivot table, but it starts by just organizing your structure of your data into jobs, candidates, and who's matched to which jobs and which candidates. So it may look complicated. Applicant tracking systems, if it'll do this well, use them. But oftentimes you don't have an applicant tracking system when you're doing startups or smaller companies, and you're struggling to just get things organized. So Google Sheets, exactly the same thing.
Eric, can I ask you a quick question on some of the categories you're using? I'm getting a little granular here, but
Okay.
So looking at keeping track of everybody you've engaged with over time, right? It's almost like a digital Rolodex to some effect. I see you have like job ID and position title. Do you bucket your people like software engineers or emergency room nurses? Do you any type of bucketing like that?
You can categorize people into preferred or desired job profiles, what they want to do, and usually you can put them into broad categories. You can also do it by department they're in, or so if not role or category, then these are accounting people versus engineering people versus salespeople. So you can just book them in by department. But it's really however you pick the columns. My recommendation for most recruiters is think what kind of report you want at the end, organize counts and numbers, because if you're going to organize it, if you're going to keep track of it on a spreadsheet, someone's going to ask you to count it eventually, okay, and to tally it up, okay? It never fails. They want to know how many people made it through the different buckets and how many people were in the pool, how many were chased, how many were screens, how many were submitted, what happened per job order, per manager, per vice president or whatever. So knowing that you're going to have to report on it a little bit, I can help recruiters build a very simple spreadsheet that says, this is the basic candidate data. This is the basic match data that people want to track of who's been matched to what. So don't get don't put a column on that I can't report on or can't, that I won't need. I don't notice that you can have variable columns and you can just leave them blanks. If you're not reporting on them, you can leave them blank if you want, because it doesn't matter for reporting if the person has a zip code or not, unless I'm doing a report based on that zip code. So just realize, put as little in. I've used scrapers in the past that fill a lot of this information in. So a good scraper saves a lot of data entry headaches, or a good export function on certain tools will create a list of candidates with the right column. So you're not having to type all that crap in.
One of the things that I do a lot, so my role isn't so much working requisitions as it is working pipelines. So I'm interested in aggregating data from a lot of different sources, putting it in a common framework. I like what you do here. I might add LinkedIn profile links to it, a couple other things, just so that a lot of times if you can enrich the data long term, that's helpful.
Absolutely.
And LinkedIn seems to be that common denominator. But yeah, this is great. I mean, some of the best recruiters that I know still use Excel or Google Sheets to perform the keep track of things. They trust it more than they trust
What's funny is
technology.
a lot of the reports, those other more complex tools such as Avager and Beamery, they all export into Excel. And at the end of the week, you're putting an Excel spreadsheet together based out of what you put in the applicant tracking system. So right. I just found that if you can stay organized and have a second set of data sometimes, even if you're putting things into a separate CRM tool, having your own personal record of what's happened, especially for some of these agency recruiters who are commission driven, nothing wrong with having your own set of books to just verify that the commissions are being paid like you expected. So it came out more than once when I was doing commission work in agencies that I had my own data sheet of who I talked to when. And even though it was in Bullhorn correctly, I had to prove it, and having a backup was handy. So not every organization has commissions, but sometimes it's nice to be able to have bragging rights at the end of the year, how many people you placed, and having your own batting scorecard is not a bad idea.
Right. Good stuff.
That kind of brings us to the end of our presentation. We'll gladly stay online and field any questions. Just send them, and Sean will send us to it. We just wanted to show you kind of a basic framework of how to stay organized through basic list management, lists of passwords, list of bookmarks, list of notes and meetings, list of candidates and job orders, just to kind of keep track of where you are. I'm going to shut my screen off for now and stop sharing, and answer any questions you guys have as far as what other kinds of data are you trying to share or keep track of that you need better ways to manage and organize.
Everybody's asking, I won't put you on the spot, Eric and Marvin, about this copies of the spreadsheet. If you guys want to share those out later, we can.
Of course I will. Yeah, no, I've been sharing that basic spreadsheet. I have one with some very basic sample data in that I've been sharing with recruiters on my team for years. So it'll have basic layout, basic formulas. They're not locked down, so you can tamper with them and you can break them. And if you break them, so I would recommend if I send you a copy, keep the copy and then make a derivative or another copy, a second copy, so you can tinker with the formulas and play with. But they're not hard, they're not complicated, but I'm not going to be your tech support for life.
Oh, come on.
Marvin, go ahead,
I was going to ask a quick question. Do you have a search string builder that you have created?
I do. And all the search string builders that I like are simply adding ands and ors and nots in an automated way. So I can put a list, once again, I have a dozen friends that have built their versions of those. I have my preferred version using the concatenate function or can't function that says, fill in a list of words in column 1, and in column 3 or 4, it puts an or statement in, usually things in quotes, because I like to have direct quotes, not implied. And it'll build. So if you just fill in, in column 1, 25 companies, in column 3 or at the top, it just puts a long or statement with those 25 companies all in quotes. And I can send an example of that as well if somebody wants that. Sean can send a link to that. I didn't build the original one. I think either Johnny Chapman did or Balas did or maybe even Glenn Cathy. I'm not sure, but I've played with it a little bit because the Boolean string builders for some sites don't always have ands and ors. Sometimes they'll do shortcuts. They'll use pipes or other things. The one I built was when I was working with iSIMS. I wanted one that had put everything in quotes and spelled out everything. So all the ands, all the ors, all the nots are spelled out. And it becomes a little bit more universal in that way. And even a single word like a Java or Unix or SQL, I put in quotes, which comes in handy because sometimes LinkedIn and some of these other sites are doing some stemming and some other intelligent search. So I like to not have, when I put the word Java in, I want it in quotes and I want Java, just Java. I don't want J2EE. I don't want JavaScript. I don't want a bunch of other Java stuff that someone who I don't know programmed in the algorithm to try to help me. So I like all my information in direct quotes. So even single words get double quotes around them, which is a little unusual for my builder. Okay,
good stuff.
I put in the chat section a very ugly link. I didn't know it was going to be like that. It's a link to Amazon. My teenage son is a gamer, so they have this thing called Stream Deck by Elgato, I think is the name of the company. But it's almost like a macro builder, where it's just buttons and you put macros in there. You can use it to insert email responses, to do all kinds of stuff. It's a wonderful tool if you live on your keyboard all day long, which we all do. Now, I always recommend gamer keyboards too. I've had like a Logitech gamer keyboard because they have macros. So I'm all about kind of one-click button to take me to a place or to add to it. But that kind of triggered off what you're doing, Eric, about the automation piece of it, or storing a search string in some notepad file or in OneNote. That's why I like those little macros, just storing it. Go get it.
So people know that you can build macros in Word and you can build macros in Excel, but most people don't know that you can build macros in a task file. So Microsoft Tasks inside Exchange, I can build macros inside my tasks. So I can build a keyboard shortcut to add ors or ands or nots between words. I can select a whole bunch of things. I also can use the native clipboard, which gives you the ability to clip a bunch of things into a task, which is very, very easy. And I won't share my desktop for that. Another time I'll show that, but I showed you how I will take a job description and highlight things I think are important and black out things I think are non-important. Well, then I'll hold my control button down and I'll double click on all the words that are remaining. And that adds all those words all at once to my clipboard. I'll paste it into a task, add ORs automatically, and now I'm off and running. So that's how I do it, is I take the words, I just hold the control button down and double click each word I want to add into my string out of the job description, and then paste it into tasks all at once using the Power Paste feature in tasks. So
Good stuff.
It's very simple. I'm not doing a lot of, I'm not using a keyboard to do it. I'm just using the macros inside tasks and the Power Paste function inside tasks.
Got it. All right. Well,
I made it sound more complicated than it is. It's really simple.
Well, I found that what's simple to you can be a little complicated for me. So I appreciate it. Listening to you, how you've taken the simplest of things and made them robust. That's pretty cool. So
we have
sharing.
We have one final comment I think I'll get to in the chat, then I think we may call it a day here. Brad, your last name isn't coming in there. He asked about data visualizations. The thing about putting things in spreadsheets, that's a good thing. There's a lot of the BI tools like your Microsoft Power BI or Tableau or IBM Watson. If you drop an Excel sheet in those, and I'm starting to play around with Tableau, so I'm starting to get interested in that. If you have your data in Excel, you can drop it in these tools. Many of them have like a free version to give you that nice look and feel of insights into your data. Have you guys ever dropped some of your, really around the sourcing stuff, I think hiring managers might find the most interesting in regards to fill in a rec versus your recruiting analytics? You guys ever drop your Excel files or your libraries into a data viz tool?
I have. Power BI is very similar to Power Pivot. Power Pivot is a function you can turn on in Excel now. So all these data sheets, all these tabs are separate sheets. When you use Power Pivot versus Power Pivot tables, Power Pivot lets you pivot between the different sheets of data. All that means is it gives you the ability to build very complex reports and visualizations based on the multiple sheets of information, which is great. So yes, I've taken the same Power Pivot or the same data structure of multiple sheets and then use it to actually do the data visualizations with Power Pivot. And once again, Power BI is free. It doesn't cost anything for you to have your own personal version of Power BI for your team. If you want to share it with teams and share the dashboards, that will cost you a little bit of money. But my recommendation is start with Power Pivot inside free Excel, or Excel when you have it licensed, and you may not need to use Power BI for some of that stuff.
All right. Oh, Marvin, you good? I don't know if you were going to add to that.
No, I defer to Eric on all things like that. So we use Tableau here, and but we have people that do that, so they don't let me play with it. So
get yourself a free version, and I think I'd be interested to see what you come away with.
I will.
Everybody loves everybody loves dashboards and visualizations, and I do too.
True story.
Well, hey, thank you guys very much. I very much appreciate it. Great insight as usual into the daily life of recruiting. So Marvin, I won't ask you what your new project is at Lockheed. It's probably something top secret.
No, I'm going to the space business area. So I've been on a team for 8 years, and we have been reorganized into business areas. So a number of us are going to different places. So I'm going to space, which I have always been kind of a fan of space and truly a space cadet at heart. So I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. That's very cool to hear. It seems to be the space race is on all over again between companies rather than countries, it seems.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then Eric, you're at SeekOut. If any of the audience members has any questions about the tool SeekOut, it's a great tool for utilized by recruiters. Highly recommend pinging Eric and finding out more about that. But anything else to wrap it up? Any final thoughts or comments?
We'll see you in 4 weeks, and we'll do it again. Sorry we were a little bit off schedule this time, but we're normally the third Thursday of the month, right?
Yep. Perfect. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Oh, and for the audience members, I will record this and post it up on our recruiting.work website for everyone to review and recap if they like to, or to share with their friends and peers. Thanks again, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.